Good day, everyone. This is Mark Vello, and you're listening to Headline News. Biden condemned for allegedly downplaying criticism of the Chinese Communist Party. On Tuesday evening, February 16th, President Joe Biden spoke at a CNN town hall event in Milwaukee about human rights violations by the Chinese Communist Party. He was condemned for his comments, which were said to downplay his criticism of the CCP. Biden said he pointed out to his counterpart that no American president can be sustained as a president if he doesn't reflect the values of the United States. Biden said he had to speak up against the regime's clampdown in Hong Kong, as well as what Xi is doing with the Uighurs in the western mountains of China and Taiwan. There will be repercussions for China, and Xi knows that, Biden added. At the same time, he excused President Xi, saying, culturally, there are different norms that each country and their leaders are expected to follow. Biden's different norms remarks drew criticism from some on social media, who accused the president of lending legitimacy to the CCP's atrocities. Former U.S. Secretary of State Mike Pompeo, before leaving office, defined China's persecution of the Uighurs in Xinjiang as crimes against humanity and a genocide. During the town hall, Biden explained that the central principle of Xi Jinping is that there must be a united, tightly controlled China, and Xi uses his rationale for the things he does based on that. Boris Epstein, former strategic advisor to President Trump, called Biden's remarks at the event horrible. He played a live clip of Biden's speech to let people hear what he actually said. The BBC recently published a report stating that there is a very credible case that the Chinese government is carrying out the crime of genocide against the Uyghur people, according to a formal legal opinion newly published in the UK. China has denied the claim. While the Biden administration has signaled that the United States would be prepared to hold the CCP accountable for its various abuses, the Chinese regime has warned that doing so would amount to breaching its red line, something that must not be crossed. According to Voice of America, U.S. Secretary of State Anthony Blinken mentioned China's various human rights issues to the senior Chinese official during a phone call earlier this month. I made clear the U.S. will defend our national interests, stand up for our democratic values, and hold Beijing accountable for its abuses of the international system, Blinken tweeted. Trump meets with former campaign manager who supports his comeback. Former U.S. President Donald Trump may be out of office, but he remains influential and his actions are being watched. On Tuesday, February 16th, a source told Fox News that Trump met with Brad Parscale, the 2016 Trump team campaign manager, at Mar-a-Lago Resort in Palm Beach. He seems to support Trump's comeback. Parscale is a top digital technologist who was instrumental in Trump winning the 2016 U.S. election by driving Trump's popularity on social media. He was then appointed by Trump as his 2020 campaign manager, but was removed as manager in July 2020 due to poor outreach and quit Trump's campaign altogether in September 2020. However, he has remained a strong supporter of Trump. It is not clear what Trump discussed with Parscale. After the Senate's second impeachment of Trump was declared a failure on February 13th, Parscale tweeted a statement saying Trump would rise again. He wrote, "This thing isn't even close to being over. Tens of millions of Americans will not disappear." Trump has kept a low profile since he left office in January, but he released a statement on Tuesday aimed at Senate Minority Leader Mitch McConnell, saying that this is a big moment for our country, and we cannot let it pass by using third-rate leaders to dictate our future. In his statement, Trump wrote, "Where necessary and appropriate, I will back primary rivals who espouse Make America Great Again and our policy of America First. We want brilliant, strong, thoughtful, and compassionate leadership." Pompeo, don't reward the CCP with rights to host the 2022 Winter Olympics. Former U.S. Secretary of State Mike Pompeo said in a February 16th interview with Fox News that the Chinese Communist Party is engaged in an effort to eliminate an entire class of people, the Uyghur Muslims. This is genocide. He believes that we cannot afford to let the CCP, a perpetrator of crimes against humanity, use the Olympics to make propaganda for itself. He called out to the partners across the world, stating, "Enough. We are not going to allow this kind of bad behavior to be rewarded with the privilege and enormous honor of hosting the International Olympics competition." Pompeo urged the International Olympic Committee, IOC, to change the host country for the 2022 Winter Olympics to a country that would uphold the Olympic ideals. He went on to say that he empathized with the athletes from all over the world participating in the Winter Olympics and understood their desire to compete in the Games. He said, "I appreciate these athletes want to compete. They want nothing to do with politics. They just want to be out there doing their best on the world stage." The 2022 Winter Olympics were originally scheduled to be held in Beijing next February. He urged the IOC to use the remaining year to replace the site. "There's still almost a year. We can have these games someplace else." Pompeo announced on January 19th, prior to his departure, that the CCP had committed genocide against the Uighurs in Xinjiang and accused the CCP of persecuting the Uighurs in Xinjiang as far back as March 2017, imprisoning more than 1 million Uighurs and denying them access to basic freedoms. A 2020 Pew Research Center survey conducted in 14 countries found that 73% of participants have an unfavorable view of the CCP. Canada considers characterizing Chinese Communist persecution of Uyghurs as genocide. Canadian Prime Minister Justin Trudeau said at a press conference on February 16th that Canada and other countries are considering characterizing the persecution of ethnic Uyghurs by the Chinese Communist Party as genocide. That's why it is a word that is extremely loaded and is certainly something that we should be looking at in the case of the Uighurs, said Trudeau during the press. He added, "We will continue to work with the international community and move forward on making the right determinations based on facts and evidence as appropriate." According to a report released in September 2020 by the Australian Strategic Policy Institute, more than 380 suspected detention facilities were found in Xinjiang, housing more than 1 million Uyghurs and other mostly Turkic-speaking Muslim residents. Before leaving office on January 19th, former Secretary of State Mike Pompeo made it clear that Beijing's crackdown on predominantly Muslim minorities in the Xinjiang region constitutes genocide and crimes against humanity. He said the CCP has continued to commit crimes against ethnic minorities, including the arbitrary arrest of severe deprivation of personal freedom, forced birth control, abuse, forced labor, and severe restrictions on their freedom of belief and expression. The new U.S. Secretary of State, Antony Blinken, also agreed with Pompeo and stated the U.S. will continue to maintain a tough stance against the Chinese Communist Party. This concludes today's broadcast. Thank you for your time, and stay tuned for the next headline news.